Welcome to our third in the series of 5 Green Your Life Earth Week 2021 events. Every day this week, we discuss one aspect of the world's necessity to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions as quickly as possible to save the Earth for our grandchildren and beyond. And if you tune in to our next day, tomorrow's 1 p.m. event, you'll hear a lot more about this. We are recording this event and will later send the recording, in fact, of the whole week, to all those who have RSVP'd. Today, our topic is interesting. It's the culmination of a 10-year desire to find a way to have a zero carbon impact on Mother Earth. John and Diane Burke will provide a quick-paced review of their passion, and you are encouraged to ask questions by clicking on chat and writing in your question. John Burke is a professor of economics and finance at Monmouth University, and is excited about running his small organic farm, building a passive house, and doing his part to build a cleaner and more sustainable environment for our future. Diane Burke has been a yoga teacher for over 20 years. Yoga taught Diane the web of life, interconnectedness of everything, and sacredness of all life. And about a decade ago, she learned about fracking from a Food and Water Watch presentation and the irreparable damage to our drinking water, air, and how it was affecting the people, especially who are underprivileged. And they were just collateral damage. This got her on the path to being an activist for the earth and for the marginalized people and for climate change. And she felt it was a social responsibility to do all she could to be part of the solution. And so today, she is now looking forward to living in a house where there is no longer a carbon footprint. And with that, I'll turn the floor over to John and Diane.
Well, hello. Hi guys. This is Diane and I'm John, obviously. So we made a brief video for you guys to watch that outlines our experience with the passive house. So we'll let it rip. And please, any questions, like Steve said, just shoot them on the chat. We'll see them and we'll go through them after the video. And so I'll share my screen.
My name is Diane Burke, and this is my husband, John Burke.
Hi.
And we are doing a presentation here today on a passive house and how we are about to build a passive house here in Middletown, New Jersey.
That seemed pretty jerky.
A passive house is a house that is built so that it has net zero energy usage. And also, hence, there would be a zero carbon footprint. So there would be no oil or gas used in the house. And then also, we decided to do it as a prefab passive house rather than a stick-built passive house. This helps to minimize the waste in construction. So the reasons for us to build a passive house, the main reason was what we could do to help out with climate change. If each one of us did something and made a big change, we could really help the whole problem. But other than that, when we went to visit the passive houses, the ambience of the homes were just absolutely wonderful. The cleanliness of the air and how quiet it was. So the other reason was there's a lot of flexibility. We could do whatever we really wanted to do, whatever we wanted it to look like, big or small. So that made us be very interested in the passive house. And it's a little bit more costly, but it really is pretty reasonable when it comes down to not having any utility bills for the rest of your existence in the house. The major obstacles that we had were really our life circumstances in our family, when we could build this house, and also selling our house and then finding the right property. We really wanted a property that was a little bit bigger and more private And we love the area we live in. We live close to the ferry and to the ocean and in a really nice area. So it was kind of hard to find that house, but we did find it. And we wanted to find a house that was in relatively poor condition so that we could knock it down and build this passive house.
What are the goals? And how do you achieve them? So to be net zero energy neutral and carbon neutral, there's a couple critical things. You got to minimize thermal bridges. We're going to go over and cover all these things later in the thing. We need super insulation and an airtight building envelope. The walls are really thick. Special system called an energy recovery ventilation unit, which we'll cover, which is very interesting, and high efficiency heat pump for heating and cooling. The windows are really cool, triple pane instead of double pane. And of course, we want low energy consuming lights and appliances. So thermal bridges. So basically, one of the laws of thermodynamics is that heat will seek cold. It's going to find a way. So this is a good example of how heat gets transferred in or out of a house. Through the roof, through the 25% through the roof, 35% through the sidewalls, the doors, the windows, and even the foundation.
So can you guess which house here is the passive house? It's pretty easy to see. And you can see from the thermal imaging all of the cracks where it allows the heat to escape from the buildings in the glowing houses there.
I'm going to go with the middle one. So the building envelope, critical. Two things. So the orange part is the insulation. And unlike a regular house, which probably has 6 inches of insulation, these are 18 inches. And they're insulated with cellulose, so it's really thick. The second thing, which a regular house doesn't have at all, is an airtight seal that goes completely around the house. So it's sort of like a balloon. So all the air is contained, and the only thing coming in or out is what you want and what you need, not drafts and vents and things like that. The other thing is we came across a lot of buzzwords as we started looking into passive houses. R values is one of them. So what's an R value? It's basically a measure of thermal resistance, and that's the ability of a material to resist heat transfer. And so higher is better for an R value. So here's the average home, what the R values are for the walls, roof, foundation, and windows. And here's what the passive standard is. And you can see they're from 100 to 300% better in a passive house. Second thing, for air tightness, we heard about all these things, blower door tests, and the passive house standard is 0.6 ACH at 50 PA. Well, what's that mean? So I went right to Google. ACH means air changes per hour. So if you think about it, that's how much the air flows through the house. And so a passive house, they want it to be very airtight. So they do a thing called a blower door test. So they have a device like this that goes on your front door. The door will be open, but this thing covers it so effectively it's closed. And there's a fan that will be blowing air into the house, and a device that measures the pressure inside the house and the volume of air that's pumped into the house. So they can actually measure how many air changes per hour occur and the pressure in the house. So the average air changes per hour in a regular house, 25 to 33 times at a pressure of 50 pascals, which is not very much pressure. It's like 0.007 PSI. But the passive standard is less than 1, 0.6. So that's a 4,000 to 5,000% improvement. So much better than a regular house. So the other cool device is an energy recovery ventilation system, ERV. So it's basically a big heat exchanger. So it works both in the winter and the summer. So in the winter, in the winter, we've got stale warm air inside the house, and we want to evacuate that and get fresh air in. The problem is the fresh air is cold and the stale warm air is warm. So through a heat exchanger in the ERV, the heat is transferred from the outgoing stale warm air to the incoming cool fresh air, and the humidity is also preserved in the house. So we want to keep the little humidity in the house in the winter, and it works the other way in the summer. the stale, cool air wants to go out and the hot, fresh air comes in, and the cool is transferred into the incoming air and the heat is transferred back to the outgoing air. So it works both ways, and it's a really good device since the house is airtight. And this is where all the air is going to come in and out. We're preserving as much heat energy as we can in the proper fashion. Windows, triple pane. So regular passive or regular homes have double pane windows, and this is an extra layer of insulation, both thermally and acoustically. And they're really cool. They open two different ways. They can open side by side, which we're kind of used to, and they can also open up and down. That's you.
Yeah, so the goals of our design, since you can do really anything you want, we expect to live here for the rest of our lives. So we really wanted a master bedroom downstairs and the laundry room downstairs. We seem to always have two wild and crazy dogs. So we said we wanted a dog wash tub in the laundry room. So we had all these big wish lists and we put it into our house. The other thing that's really important to us is a lot of windows so that we almost feel like while we're inside, we are so connected to the outside, and a lot of spaciousness. The other thing is that we are doing extra, going above and beyond passive by putting solar panels on the roof, so that energy of like appliances can be taken care of. And then we're going to store the energy in batteries. And we have an electric car, so we have a charger for that. Here is just a rendition of what our house is going to look like. This is called a Varm house with Unity, and there are many designs you can choose from. Here's a real Varm house that we actually visited in Lumberton, New Jersey. It was beautiful. This is another one, another model that you can pick. And then in addition to building the passive house, the reason we wanted the property is because we want to live even more, have more dimension to our lifestyle. So the food is a very big part of climate change. And when it comes from New Zealand or something, there's a huge carbon footprint to it. So we have our own vegetable garden, and we converted a tennis court to a vegetable garden because the tennis court was in poor shape. And I'll show you a picture of that in a moment. We'd also like to have some animals, perhaps sheep, goats, maybe alpaca, and we'll use the manure to help till the land and our vegetable garden. We have bees, and the bees help pollinate the vegetable garden, and we grow clover, 5 acres of clover to feed the bees. And we also plan to have water harvesting from the rain off of our roof into a cistern underground. So here's the tennis court that I was just talking about. You can see trees growing up under the asphalt and cracking right through it. So we had to take up all this asphalt, and you can see here the big machine that took it out, and I'm happy to see it go. And then John and I built these above ground raised beds, and then we filled them with leaves and with topsoil. And we made 18 of them. We had a lot of time during COVID. Then we put down the mulch on top of the fresh topsoil on the tennis court. And then you can see some abundance. This was probably in around August or July. And life was. And then we had farm-to-table dinners and really enjoyed the vegetable garden. And you can see behind the table here the sunflowers, and then there's clover underneath. And this is really interesting because the sunflowers and the clover help to remediate the oil that had seeped perhaps into the ground from the years and years of asphalt on the soil. So in about 3 years, we'll be able to plant trees where all these flowers are growing.
So here's a couple of links that we think you'll find useful. The first one, Unity Homes, that's the firm that is building our home. They're panelized or prefab. Benson Wood is one of their affiliates, more custom, whereas Unity, they have a bunch of different designs and you can modify them quite a bit. And EcoCore is very similar to Unity. They're all very good people. We've gotten to know them quite well over time, and it's kind of hard to pick one. You know, they're all so good. And EcoCore has a great video that's worth watching. It's all about the benefits of panelized passive house construction. So it's worth a watch. And lastly, we'd love to have you guys follow along as we build this thing. And so anyone who's interested, especially maybe when the panels come up and we put up the walls and the roof, give us an email at dburke.yoga@gmail.com. So thanks for watching, and hope to hear from you guys. Bye. So, Steve, I lost the chat thing somehow in popping up that. Do you see? Oh, wait, you know what? Here, there it is. I think I can get it back.
I'd like to encourage everybody to put your questions into chat since your mics are disabled. The one question I hit upon is, using sunflowers and clover to clean the soil sounds really novel. Tell me more about it.
Well, the sunflowers and clover grow roots, and the roots, and then you also actually, I didn't want to get too far into it because I wanted to make it quick. It's actually pretty complicated, but I also put down microbes into the soil, and the microbes are what really eat the oil. But the microbes have a symbiotic relationship with clover and sunflowers, and the root system and the sugars from the sun go down into the earth, and then the microbes eat the sugar and create, and so there's this symbiotic relationship. But microbes actually eat the oil, and you know, it changes to something else. It's actually very complicated, but we're doing it.
Yeah, so I saw the chat questions popped up. I can see them now, so we'll answer a couple of these. One of them is, it's surprising there are passive prefab houses available. What are the brands and companies? Well, we did kind of touch on two of them at the end of the presentation. One is Unity Homes that we are using, and the other one is EcoCore. And they're both very good. And they both offer many different models, and they allow you to kind of tweak their models a fair amount to suit your particular needs. And then beyond that, like Unity has their more custom thing called Benson Wood, where you can make your complete entire own design, and they will panelize that for you. So that's that one.
I have one question that came to me. How are you heating the house?
So instead of natural gas firing, a furnace, we're going to use a heat pump. And a heat pump is, they're getting used more and more frequently. I think it's more efficient and it's not burning fossil fuels. But basically through compression and expansion, when you compress a gas, it creates heat. And when it expands, it cools. So it goes both ways. So the heat pump through compression will create heat, and then air will flow through essentially a heat exchanger or a radiator, passing the heat into the house, and then compressing that and then letting it expand going the other way will actually cool the house. So it's a very good system to use that doesn't burn fossil fuel. It runs on electricity, and that will be generated. We're going to have PV panels on our roof. Boy, the questions are flowing in now.
I think the brands we kind of said at the end, Unity and EcoCore are great places to look. There are so many other ones. And something about a general contractor and permits. I don't think it's going to be hard at all to get a permit. They actually have architects for New Jersey to stamp the blueprint, and it shouldn't be a problem. The problem we're going to have is we're going to try to stay living in the house on the property while we build the other house, and then knock the old house down, and the Middletown might have a problem with us living on the property. So I don't think we'll have a problem actually with getting a permit.
Yeah, in the particular zone we're in, there's only one residence allowed per property. So even though we have a big property, we have 11 acres in a 2-acre zone. The rule is only one. So we're going to ask for a variance for that just while we build the house. And technically we won't even really have to, because once we get one CO, we'll knock the other one down.
And finding a contractor, it's a little bit difficult. You have to have someone flexible enough to learn something new. And we seem to have found 2 contractors that are very interested. And so it'll be a process. And I think they work hand in hand the whole time with Unity Homes.
And so, let's see. Will the solar panels be enough when power is cut off for a week during Sandy? Well, we're also going to have a battery backup. And what we just decided we're going to do is we're going to put Tesla roof on the house, which they're not really the big solar panels. They're little shingles from, a distance from 30, 40 feet away or less. They look like regular shingles on a house, but they're in fact solar panels. And we're going to combine that with the Tesla power wall, which is a battery backup. So we can use that to charge our car. We can use the batteries that'll power the house for about 2 or 3 days if we completely lose power and have clouds. So once the sun pops out again, the batteries will recharge. So that package together will work pretty nicely. I was very pleased. I was worried that the Tesla roofs weren't out yet. And I was very pleased to find out they are. I actually went and looked at one. So that's what we're going to use.
And can you repeat who works with prefab houses, and are they only in New Jersey? Unity Homes is in New Hampshire, and EcoCore is in Maine, and they provide houses for all over the eastern coast. I don't know how far down they go, but they definitely travel to New Jersey. There's also one called Build Smart. I can't remember where they are, but all of them, will work with people in New Jersey.
Another question, are there tax incentives specific to building a passive house like we're building? Answer is yes. HAP just sent us some things. And looking at those just quick, I saw 6,000 in incentives that we can get, plus more. That is a function of how much the 6,000 I think you just get for meeting the standards that are required by the state. And then additionally, based on how much energy you're saving or storing or creating, can be even more. So the answer to that is yes. Let's see what else we have.
Native plants, I'll speak about that. Yes, that's another part of our future. Once the house is up and the land is graded, we plan to do as many native plants as possible. And if people don't know what native plants are, it's foliage that brings insects and life from how it used to be before we just had like round boxwoods and things that look pretty, or like a Japanese maple from Japan. So there's so many different native plants that we can use for our landscape, and it'll be really fun to see just life come back to this property.
Here's 2 questions. I'll kind of combine them into one. But will you have heating backup should there be a major winter storm with 2 feet of snow on your solar panels for weeks and with very low temperatures? And I'm going to combine that with will you be connected to the grid at all? Yes, we will be connected to the grid. And we will have some baseboard electric heat just in case. We don't expect to have to use that. But in the event that, such as you described, we could. So we are going to be on the grid over the course of the year. We expect we will have net zero electric usage. We'll generate more in some months and use some in the other months, but our target is to average out close to zero. So we'll probably just pay the monthly connection fee to the grid.
And how long will it take once they start? The outside of the house, the panels and the exterior of the house is what they do. That should only take 10 days, I think.
Yeah, 10 days, 2 weeks.
Yeah, and then the general contractor does the inside of the house. But we did this, what is it called? Where we picked out all of the things inside it too. So everything will be ready to go. We don't have to now go to a cabinet store or a doorknob store. Everything will be there inside, and the general contractor will just start putting up the drywall. And we're hoping it's done maybe in 3 months after the shell goes up.
Oh, here's a good question. How long have you been working on this, start to finish? And is it possible to shorten the time? Quick answer, yes. We've been working on it for, like Steve said, 10 years. And part of that was we lived in a nice, beautiful house. Our kids grew up in that house in Rumson, and we weren't going to knock that thing down. So we decided to move. And then when we were moving, we wanted to find the exact perfect home for us, which was a beautiful property with a really crappy house that we wouldn't feel bad about knocking down for the right price in the area that we love. So it was almost impossible, but we did find the right thing. And then we went through a long process of looking at different suppliers of homes. We were going to build our own. And we found that was a little more expensive than we wanted, or design our own. And so we went with the kind of the more panelized, the prefab versions. We found that to be quite a bit cheaper. And we interviewed or worked with 2 different companies for a long time before kind of picking one. So quick answer, yeah, it can be a lot cheaper. You can call these guys up right now and say, put me on the schedule. There's a lot of demand for this. And so if you do that, call them right now, put me on the schedule. You're going to be at least a year down the road till you get your stuff. So put me on the schedule, go through their websites, talk to their designers, figure out what works for you. But I think you could do it in a year, or a little more than a year from by the time you really pick your design and they're scheduled to build. The big wait is going to be waiting for your turn in the factory to build your panels.
And will we be gracious enough to have you invite you guys over? Yes, that's a big part of what we want to do. We want to make this, maybe put it in the New York Times, not the New York Times, the Two River Times, because we want everyone to come and see it. You can watch the panels go up, you can watch the drywall and the ERVs go in and everything, so that you can really understand the process. And we would love to teach, to show architects, builders, and home buyers this whole process. So if you keep contact with me at dburke.yoga@gmail.com, we will keep you informed as to when the house is going to be going up.
Here's a good one. Is the passive house going to be stuffy since it's so well insulated? No, we've visited quite a few of these things, and it's amazing how fresh and clean and quiet they are. It's actually shocking. It's different than the house you're used to, but certainly not stuffy because of the ERV. So that thing, even though the thing's completely airtight, the ERV will circulate as much air as you need, but only on your terms while recapturing all the heat energy. So no, it's a beautiful thing. Yeah, your turn.
Quite the contrary. So someone said the square footage of our house, is it
2,700 square feet.
2,700. And it can look like anything. There were some that were like tiny houses, and they can be, and then if you go to Bensonwood, they're like $1 million houses, and they can be huge mansions. It can look and be the space that you want.
Yeah, I mean, I'll mention, when we first started looking at real passive houses, the biggest source of energy transfer is through the windows. So they minimize the windows, even though they're triple pane. And we love open and light feeling. So we're giving up a little bit there. We're going for the bigger windows because that's what we want. But if you really, really, really want to go pure passive, you're going to have little tiny windows and have a more efficient home. We're still shooting for, and we expect to completely achieve zero net energy usage doing what we're doing.
We are not going to be in a community of sustainable houses. I would love to see someone like Hovnanian or all these big builders begin to, build zero energy houses, passive houses. That would be a dream come true. But we hope that with our house and being open to showing as many people as possible, that perhaps others will start building this way.
And part of the same question, an open house on Earth Day 2022 would be a great event.
Sounds like a
let's
good
plan on that. I like that.
And we are not having a basement. You can have a basement. It was going to add a lot to our costs, so we decided to do it on a slab.
Where are passive houses to visit? Well, there's a few. You can call these people Unity and EcoCore, for example, or others, and ask them, hey, is there anything I can go see? We did that. And one close to us, or relatively close in New Jersey, was in Lumberton. So we went and visited that one, and it ended up being the same model that we're building. We're tweaking ours a little differently. We visited a couple other things. There was a renovation going on in Brooklyn. So it wasn't a whole new house, but it was a renovation to passive standards and to meet passive house standards. It was very interesting. We've seen houses elsewhere in New Jersey around Edison. There's a couple. Dartmouth University purchased, I think, 4 from Unity and built them as housing for professors. So you could go visit those. So there's quite a few, but the best thing to do is ask the companies that supply them what's near you.
And there's also a passive house club. It's not a club, but an association that you can log on to. And we went there, and then they would notify us of different people like us from 10 years ago that were giving tours of their houses as they were being built. And so we went as far as New York State, like a 2-hour drive, to go visit some of the houses. And it was really fun and exciting to see this. I can't believe we're actually doing it. And the other question is about putting a film on the windows to keep the sun out. We maximized the roof and oriented, the maximum roof is oriented south. So we have the most solar that we can possibly have, which turns out that the most of the windows would be facing east and west. The west side of our house is going to have a shed roof porch on it. So actually a lot of the sun will be shaded from that roof, the shed roof. But we won't have film on it. And I think other things you can do are like putting cover, like, what would you call it?
Shade.
Yeah.
That was another question. Will we have shades on there? No. We've seen one of the house in Edison was really interesting because they designed the windows to incorporate the azimuth of the sun, the actual angle of the sun to Earth, so that in the winter, when the sun's low on the horizon, the sun is beaming into the floor. And then in the summer, when it's high, it actually creates shade. So we didn't do that. We wanted an outdoor patio that happens to be right there. So we're giving that up, and we're kind of taking it back with solar on the roof. And that will, go through our heat pump. That one of the other questions was what runs the heat pump, electric energy, and we're going to be using solar and battery backups to do that. So we're going that way because we want the aesthetics of the porch and to be able to sit on our porch. So it'll be good for the summer, but not so good for the winter. So we're going to rely a little more on PV and the heat pump for heat in the winter.
And what about our stove?
The stove. Is that a question?
Yeah.
So one of the houses we saw, another one in Edison, there's actually 2, had this really cool stove that is, I forgot what you call it.
Inversion?
I forgot.
It works on batteries.
No, it's.
Not magnets. So
It's called induction heating.
Convective,
yes,
yeah, or conductive.
Inductive.
Inductive, yeah. So it's basically like a magnet coil kind of situation. And we actually used it and it works, it heats up extremely quickly. So we're going to use one of those.
So the magnets go faster and faster with the heat and the electricity, and it doesn't heat the surface of the stove, it heats the steel pot. So you do have to have steel to make this work. But it's really interesting because once you take the pot off, the surface of the stove is cool. But again, it's all electricity that we're using. There's no gas and no propane.
Question on the heat pump. So what type of heat pump is it? There's different types. There's air, water. So we're just going to have an air heat pump. So it's compressing air or decompressing air to create heat or cool.
What about our budget, total budget?
Total budget. The property, the component that we're going to get from Unity is on the order of $500,000, and then we're going to hire a GC to finish that up, which is probably going to add another 2 to 3 to it. So to build the house, we're kind of looking at like 700.
Oh, and I see someone's worried about the birds that could hit the windows. And yes, we care about birds, and we'll put stickers up so that birds realize that it's a window and they don't die crashing into it. That would be a really sad thing.
Will you have a wood burning stove or fireplace? No, because we've been heavily cautioned against that by all the people we talk to. That, you know, this thing is retains so much heat, you don't need any other source to do that. We will have a wood burning fireplace kind of stove on the outdoor patio, but not within the house. And that's also a big source of losing air too. But the main reason was that the heat it generates, you know, would just need to be evacuated out of the house.
You can't have heated floors either, radiant floors, because the house is just so efficient. It's like a thermos, that it would be just too hot for this house. It's very minimal power that goes to heating or air conditioning.
There's another question, actually from the same person. Would you put solar panels on the ground in case you need more power than the roof can provide? Well, we're also going to build a barn. You know, medium to large barn, and it's going to have a big roof, and that'll be our next place to go for panels. And if we decide we need more than that, we've got enough space that, yeah, we could put some on the ground if we want to. Is cellulose insulation under the floor? Cellulose insulation's in the walls. The floor insulation is foam. So under the slab, and actually I don't think anyone asked about this, but are we going to have a basement or a slab? We're choosing a slab because when we really looked at it, the basement was about 100,000 more, and we really don't think we need it. So we're just going to go with the slab, although it's not a regular slab. It goes down deep. It has a lot of insulation. So once you go down 5 feet, you're pretty much at 55 degrees. So that will be kind of the temperature that goes up and down, you know, from the slab. And there will be insulation around the slab on all sides. But it's foam insulation, not cellulose. But cellulose in the walls and the roof. Wood burning fireplace creates CO2. Yeah, we're not doing that.
No, we are outside.
Oh.
And so it's true.
Well, you know,
have
that's,
to,
yeah.
So
yeah.
we will have a footprint when we burn a fire outside in the fireplace. Yeah. So yes.
Yeah. What is the water heater? Tank storage or heated right away? That is a decision we haven't made yet. And I think we will lean on the suppliers of the homes to steer us, but I think they kind of like the immediate heat version.
And speaking of water, I think I mentioned it in the video, we really plan to harvest the water off the roof and put it in a big cistern under the ground. We would like to use that to irrigate the garden and the property. People think that wells are great instead of using like city water, but they're actually not that great either, because they're sucking the aquifer of water. So it's still using water. Whereas if you capture the rain from the roof, a lot of rain from roofs goes through the gutter, down the driveway, into the street, into the sewer, into the ocean. So you're changing fresh water from the rain into salt water in the ocean. And it's very hard to turn that back except for like evaporation from the ocean. But we would like to capture that and harvest it and then put it back in the earth through irrigation.
From William Silver, I love this question. Do you have any idea what the real estate taxes of the real estate taxes, and would they be reduced because of the sustainable nature of the home? Well, let me give William the contact info for the tax assessor in Middletown. But I don't think we get a direct tax reduction because of the sustainable nature of the home. There are some tax incentives for that, but not on our property tax. Although I think that's a fabulous idea. We are farm assessed anyways as it is, so our taxes are quite a bit lower than a property like this would be without that. Another question, how big is the farm space? Well, we've got 11 acres total. You know, one needs to be devoted to the house, so really kind of 10, you know, but realistically maybe 8 is true farm. Will the driveway be permeable? Actually, it's partially permeable in the old house we're living in the moment. We're going to rebuild, we're going to keep part of that driveway and then build part of a new driveway. And that would be nice. We haven't settled on that either. We haven't really dealt with the driveway issue yet, but we do love permeable driveways and we've spent a lot of time looking at them. So I think we like that idea.
And the permeable driveway we've been looking at, you know, you think of just maybe small white rocks, but there's really some beautiful driveways where you can do like lattice work with clover or, you know, green in between. So it is permeable. And I think that's a really great thing that we're looking into.
Some of them are very attractive. So I think that we're at the end of our questions.
I really thank you, Diane and John. What I'd like to propose, I have a closing, and I'll share screen in a second, but what I'm proposing is after this, to open up the mics and video to everybody, and they can continue discussion, maybe, if they'd like to. But we will open up the conference after my closing.
Okay.
I like the question about sustainable marshmallows.
That came up.
So you should be seeing a screen of talks that are sponsored by Sierra Club and by Middletown for Clean Energy this week, one per day plus a little more. So we've already had a talk. These recordings will be available so that if you RSVP'd to this, you will receive the recording link and also some of the materials that have been presented. So Monday we had a story about how you can make your own house highly energy efficient. And that's the very first step to cut your home's carbon footprint and save money. Second was on Tuesday, getting to zero with heat pumps. We spoke with a woman, Phyllis, who is a really early adopter. She now has, I don't know, 3 arrays of solar, has heat pumps and an electric car. And today we heard about how to build your own zero energy house from Diane and John Burke. Tomorrow, my wife Pat and I will give you the full story of what's the carbon footprint in New Jersey, how does that translate to you, and how you can, easy steps you can do to reach 50% reduction by 2030 and net zero by 2050. And then Thursday, Friday, we'll have a talk. I'm going to Friday the 23rd at 7 p.m. Dennis Anderson has a snazzy title: Dirt, Sun, and 0 to 60 miles per hour in 3 seconds. And so what he's done is to create a backyard that's perfect topsoil with a big rain garden. He has a maximum solar capacity in his house, and he has 2 electric vehicles, his vehicle and hers vehicle. So he is preserving the environment on his own terms. So those are the big things that we have sponsored. Thursday night, though, there's something I suggest you take a look at. Empower, which is the biggest New Jersey conservation organizations in New Jersey. The leaders of those organizations will present your opportunity to have public participation in forthcoming regulation rules by the Department of DEP. And it's under something, a rulemaking called NJPACT, Protecting Against Climate Threats. So they'll tell you about the great opportunities you have to influence forthcoming regulations. So that's it for the formal part of this. I'm going to stop share, and I'm proposing to just turn on all your mics if people are comfortable with that. Is that okay, John and Diane?
Yeah.
Turn on their mics, turn on their video.
Are you doing it, Steve?
Yeah, I'm
Okay.
Okay, I'm going to start video, allow you to start video. So everybody now can turn on your mic, turn on your video if you wish, and you now can talk directly to John and Diane. Yeah, let me stop recording so that you feel comfortable talking about what you like.
Now let's get the real scoop.